I'm very pleased to be here today. It's a great honor to be here beside Sandra Díaz and accepting this Princesa award. And it means a lot to me because what I've been doing with climate change, it's something that I've only been doing for the last year or two. It's a brand new area for me. I'm a plant geneticist, but I've been working more on foundational kinds of plant biology. And by that I mean just basically how plants work. And so I've done that for 30 years, and now I'm doing something completely new. And it's a wonderful time to be given this honor and also be given the opportunity to speak to you and to give you some of my message about what I think are the issues around climate change and how I think one solution might be that we can use plants to help us fix that problem. But again, I want to just say again, I want to thank the jury for picking us. And, and I was very surprised when I got the news. I was like, wow, why am I getting that award? And so, so that was really very exciting for me. And I appreciate that Spain has recognized me with this honor.
Bueno, en mi caso estoy
As for me,
terriblemente agradecida.
I'm so
y también
thankful.
como mi colega Joanne,
And same as my colleague Joanne, I'm also puzzled.
Me tomó como una
I
sorpresa
feel
total
it is quite a
hace unos meses
surprise. It
cuando
was
me
a
enteré de la
few
noticia.
months ago when I
Fue un
learned
profundo
about
dolor,
the award, and I
además de,
felt
por
deeply
supuesto,
honored.
compartirlo con Joanne,
First, because I share it with
desde muy
Joanne,
distintos,
and we both
áreas
have
del conocimiento,
different fields of
creo que
expertise,
empujamos
and
el
yet
mismo
we are
carro, o al
pushing
menos
forward in the
tratamos
same
de
direction.
empujarlo.
I think we are on the same page, or we try to
También
be.
es un gran honor
And it is an honor
recibir
to
este premio que de
receive
alguna
this
manera
award,
todos los
which
años visualiza áreas
every
clave
year
de la
focuses
ciencia, el
on
deporte
key
y la
areas of
cultura.
science, sports, and
Uno
culture.
de los grandes beneficios de
One
estos
of the
premios
great
es la enorme
advantages of the awards
visibilidad
is the
en
great
España y en el
visibility,
mundo que se
not
le da
just in
a
Spain, but the rest of the
determinadas
world.
áreas del conocimiento
And
y
this
la
is the
cultura.
way that
Y
knowledge
que
and
este año
culture
se le haya dado a
become
las
known.
plantas,
And
a
the
la
fact that this year
naturaleza
plants and
y a los
nature
cambios
and
globales que
global
tenemos que
changes
enfrentar
that
todos
we
juntos,
have
a mí
to
me
face up
parece
all together are on the focus, I find it is very
Y además estoy
important.
muy agradecida
And I'm
a
also
todo el
very
pueblo de
thankful to
Asturias,
the people
que
in Asturias,
las
everyone in
24 horas
Asturias,
que hemos estado
because we've
aquí
been here for
realmente nos han
24 hours
tratado
now, and
maravillosamente
we've been spoiled.
And I also want to add, can I add? I think it's wonderful that Asturias has this cultural week. And I think the United States should think a lot about having a week similar to this, where you have a discussion about many important areas, like Sandra was saying. And I just think it's a great idea, and that every country should do it, and maybe that would keep us in better behavior as people. Anyways, we'll see how that goes.
Paso al turno de preguntas.
Thank you very much. We open for questions now. First question. Good afternoon, Alejandra Martínez, the Asturian Radio, Cadena Ser. I'd like to know that Swedish girl, Greta Thunberg, that is now touching our awareness and consciousness all over the world for the present and the future of our planet. And this is another way of fighting of climate change. What's your take on her role? Well, personally, I think Greta Thunberg is the face, the visible face of a huge movement that we have now, which is bottom-up, and it is the young people moving up all over the world in so many cities. And I think that it is basic that this is happening. And it's not something that did not happen some 4 or 5 years ago, but actually we could not even picture it happening. We never thought of it happening. So I would say that now the young people are moving for the climate and the nature as a whole. And I feel it is a symptom. It shows that there is something new coming up and that there's something still to be done and can be done.
I think Greta is anguished. And you can see it when she addresses the UN in that famous video that went viral on YouTube. And she blames it on us. And that makes me sad because, you know, the world did grow by a factor of, I think the human population tripled last century. And so we have a big problem on our hands, but it happened in a blink of an eye. And I hope, you know, Greta understands a little bit about that. But I think activism plays a big role in that. Reducing human emissions is going to be part of the solution. And so I think I applaud her for going on and trying to get that role played by young people like herself who feel like they're inheriting a bad world, a world that was much worse for those of us who are, who are older now than when we entered the world. And so I think, I don't know that we're horrible about listening to the message of young people, but we do need to hear it, and I'm glad she's been the face of it, personally.
Siguiente pregunta.
Next question. Earlier today, you met young people, well, actually kids, school kids, in their environments. Well, they actually work with the leaves in their surroundings, and then they also drew some comics. They somehow showed how they understand the messages that you want to convey to society. What's your conclusion from that meeting with the youngest kids from schools? Personally, I found it uplifting, very enriching. I really enjoyed it so very much. Only thing I'm sorry is that I didn't have enough time with every single herbarium and every single comic, because it was clear to me how much time, devotion, and hard work for every piece. It was visible. It was something you could feel and sense in there. It was a brief visit, and unfortunately we could not express to every kid how important it was to us and how important it will be for all of us and for all of you that those activities take place. Because from that early age and coming close in that way, that's when you really understand why it is so important to take care of the canvas of life. And if you don't start as soon, and if you don't really get to know it firsthand, you will never become a citizen that is committed. It's always easier to learn when you start as a kid. So I feel terribly proud that together with Joanne, we didn't do anything actually, but we've been the catalyst for that movement amongst the girls and boys so that they completed their works.
I was touched by the kids today, I have to say. And one thing it really brought home to me was that kids get it. They get science, and so it was so nice to see them getting it. And they seemed interested in what we had to say, even though when I think of kids, I don't think they're very interested in what I have to say, but they were very interested today in what we had said or what we were saying today. And so that it was a nice exchange from both ends, I think, for them to meet us and for us to meet them, and to see how they were thinking about what we had to say in some things that they had read about us. And so I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I too regret that it was so short. I could have spent all day there with those kids. They were just so full of life. You can see it in them. Anyway.
Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Next question. Good afternoon. I'm Jaime Martín with Agencia EFE. By now, when we see floods and droughts and typhoons, unprecedented effects, and yet, can people deny there is climate change out there? And how come there's people who deny it? Well, I personally feel that when there is denial of climate change, there's something simple underlying it. Political and financial interest is what's underlying it. It's a model that has been followed, well, it's nothing new. Those financial interests start by denying a problem, and when it becomes undeniable, they doubt evidence. And I think it happened with so many things in history, many products. Substances that were highly polluting and toxic for people, and first evidence was denied and then it had to be accepted. I guess with climate change there is denial, but yet it's lower than years ago, because the weight of evidence is way too heavy by now. Yet there are people who deny it, and people deny the crisis of biodiversity as well. Generally, come from the same political channels, and even the same faces are the ones who deny it. I would dare say it has to do with vested interests, not scientific evidence at all. I would say evidence now for both topics, climate change and biodiversity crisis and ecosystem crisis, is undeniable.
Unfortunately, I lost the connection to my translator. I didn't hear the question, and I didn't hear your answer either. Maybe you can tell me the question.
To know about what you think about those who deny climate change.
Well, I don't think much of that, because I do think climate change is happening, and it's happening much quicker than anybody ever anticipated in any model. 3 times as fast, I think, is the latest number. And so now the IPCC has changed what they think is the first tipping point to 2030. That's just 10 years from now. And so we really need to think about it, and we shouldn't be worried about if we're causing the damage or it's being caused by some other natural cycle of the Earth. It's happening so rapidly that it's going to be a major disaster if we do nothing. And it's going to cost us trillions of dollars as countries of the world to fix, the Houstons that go underwater, or the Californias that burn in a wildfire because all the trees, 90 million trees are already dead from bark beetle that was caused by global warming to find a new habitat. And so anyways, I think, to me, it's not really, I think most people don't deny climate, they just deny humans' involvement in it. And so if you don't think you have any role in it, then you think you might not have to be the one that spends the money to fix it. And I think that happens in the United States right now in a way. But yeah, I don't worry about if people believe it or not. I think the data are there that says it's happening. And so we need to do something about it. We can't sit back any longer and watch it continue to get hotter and hotter. And then also see all the climate extremes that are ruining cities all over the Earth. And will soon cause political instability, perhaps. And so we have to be careful about all the consequences that are fallouts of climate extremes.
Continuamos. Siguiente pregunta.
So
por
next
favor.
question, please.
Hola, soy Mónica Salas.
My name is
de La
Mónica
Nueva
Salas.
España.
I work with La Nueva España
Hablaban
newspaper.
de
You
de la crisis
talked
de la
about
diversidad. Yo
the
quería saber cómo el
biodiversity
cambio
crisis.
climático
So,
afecta precisamente a esa
climate change,
diversidad y en
how
concreto
does
a
it
las
impact
plantas.
on biodiversity, specifically plant biodiversity? Well, climate change has an impact on plants, and so it has an impact on the rest of the living realms in very many different ways. Some plants cannot live longer where they used to live, any longer where they used to live, or else they survive, but in smaller populations because it's drier now than it used to be, or because there are some environmental extremes where they cannot thrive, or else because as a consequence of, for example, in some cases, because it's warmer, well, there are some plants from other colder areas or lower areas move on, and the local plants cannot compete. This mismatch in plant communities means that there are changes in the animal wildlife. Again, there's no food anymore for them. So all the wildlife communities are somehow rearranging at a faster pace than what could be done in the past or assumed in the past. You might say, well, plant communities went back and forth following, for example, glacier ages, right? And here we are, despite it all. But in going back and forth with those ages, well, it happened through longer periods of time, so it happened slowly. There was time to adjust and migrate, and they did so with a continuous landscape. But nowadays, everything is an expedited process, and all ecosystems are very much fragmented. So plants and animals, when migrating, find themselves frozen or blocked by large habitat surfaces that they cannot inhabit anymore.
I would add only to
Professor,
that wonderful answer that even bacteria are losing diversity. We've lost millions of species of bacteria that we never even got to know. And it's sad, when you think about it that way. But also, I mean, it's just the pace that it's happening. It's going to be too hard to deal with. It's as bad as when the meteor hit Earth and all the dinosaurs got lost. It happened. It's going to be that fast in terms of geological time, practically. You have a major event, you're going to hit a tipping point, and then the world's going to be different. And so people really have to start to think about it, because you're right, plants are already migrating north. And the tropics are severely impaired.
¿Tenemos tiempo para una última pregunta?
We have time for one last question.
Sí. ¿Alguien desea formular alguna cuestión más? Sí, Jaime.
So there's a question there, Jaime. Based on the comments here, any estimation on how many plants have been lost in recent years and how many more are expected to be lost in the future? We are a coal mining area, Asturias is, and we have polluting companies, energy producing companies and factories in a significant number. So how can you explain to someone that they might be out of a job, out of employment, and yet we need the change? We need to go through this process in the way we consume and use energy. Well, I think there are several questions in your question. I'll try to split it up and answer separately, because as I say, there are several sides to your question. First, the estimation is that since 1500 up to now, over 800 animals are extinguished now, as far as we know, and around 500 and 600 plant species gone away. It might be an overestimation, because we are talking about plants and animals that are prevailing and glamorous enough for us to notice first that they did exist, and secondly that they did go away and got extinct. This is just an idea that we are facing now. The fact is that the future is bleak, quite bleak in that regard. So around 25 to 40% of all species of vascular plants are somehow endangered. This is estimated by someone, some others doubt it and question it, but we are just speaking broadly. These are all solid estimations, the best we have. It would be 1 million plant and animal species all over the world that are endangered. It does not mean that they will unavoidably get extinct. It means that it is still within our reach to make sure they do not get extinct. But they are at risk if we do nothing. That's the first half of your question. Second half of your question, I'd say, no one's saying we need to stop producing food, energy, commodities, or stop using the world, and so all jobs are doomed just to save nature. This is not what we are saying. What we are saying is that in order to save ourselves, with the lifestyle we enjoy, the lifestyle that we evolved into for so many million years, what we need is to reconnect with the natural world. We need to save that meshwork that contains us. And for that, we need to keep doing what we do to get energy, food, raw materials in different ways. And those new different ways might also create lots of jobs. There is plenty of evidence that it's not that they do not bring down the number of jobs, but new jobs are created. Probably they'll be different though. differing from the prevailing production mode so far. But there's a third part to your question, and my answer would be, sorry that it's taken me so long, but again, several sides to your question, so several answers are needed. But I want to say that it's important to realize that these are not different challenges. These are not, well, some people come and say, well, you have climate change as a challenge, you've got biodiversity crisis as a challenge, then you have this challenge of achieving the perfect welfare and well-being for everyone in the planet. Which one is most important? Which one do we tackle first? Well, we need to understand that they are all symptoms of the same model. And so these are all symptoms of the same problem. And so we need to tackle them simultaneously, all three. And there are working and production means and ways that help us solve all three at the same time, since we cannot tackle one of these problems without tackling the remaining two, because it wouldn't work that way.
It's a tremendous challenge, I think, to think about how you get rid of one kind of energy production for a different one, and how you're going to employ 10 billion people to do it, right? As we get better at computer programming, we've gotten better at artificial intelligence, and we've gotten better at machine learning, so that machines can do many of our jobs no matter what they are. And so it's something we have to start thinking about now. 10 billion people by the end of the century, say, or more, probably, maybe more, like 11. And we only have less than 8 billion right now. And then we're going to have fewer jobs because we're better at programming and doing machine learning. So how are we going to occupy everybody anyway, right? I mean, we need to think about ways that people are going to have more free time. And what are they going to do with their free time? Well, maybe we all go back to, sustainable farming practices, or, something like that. We just start working the land in a different way. Or we spend at least less hours at our regular job, and then we have a second job that is doing something for other people. There's a challenge on everybody who wants to work on climate change, I can tell you that right now. And that is, how do you come up with a solution that also creates jobs? That's what governments want to know. How are you going to create jobs if you do that kind of technology? And so it is a challenge, and it's one as a world, we need to talk about quite a bit, I think, so that we can start putting plans into place. Because I don't think windmills and solar energy are going to replace our dependence on coal and other fossil fuels. And so we need to think about other ways to get to clean energy so that we have zero emissions. At the same time, we can also pull down some of the excess CO2 that's already in the atmosphere, and create jobs, and feed 11 billion people. And just think of what kind of a burden that puts on anybody who tries to think about such a serious problem. It's massive. It's a massive problem. And we all have to get together to solve it. There's no other way but get together and figure it out. Else we're not going to be here to enjoy it. And our grandchildren will definitely have a horrible life compared to the life you all had. And so we need to continue to think in those terms. It's very motivating, believe me, when you look at your son or daughter and then you think about doing nothing. It's a horrible outcome for them. And so just keep that in your mind if you ever doubt it, that it's worth trying to figure out ways to solve this problem.
Let me just add, this is the most realistic plan we have. It is idealistic, but still the most realistic that we could have.